Yeah. So we're back. Episode 5 of Don't Mess with Jim. And look at me. Look at me today. I'm in significantly better state than I was last week after my escapades in New York. Although I still do feel a bit dusty. We had a live show last night. Wednesday night it was, in Flatiron Square in London with my partner in crime, Andy Good, and Chris Ashton came along. And we had to chop a couple of pints. Lads, eh? Yeah, so audience member challenges me to chop a pint. It is my party trick. I mean, I don't know whether that's something I should be proud of. I don't think the wife would think it was anything to shout about, all the kids. But yeah, so my party trick is chopping a pint. So I had to chop a couple last night and feel a bit dusty for it today, but better than last week. And we're back in London. We're at the Queen's Park, Wolfpack Bar, Lonsdale Road. Look at us. Looking cool as shit. Not necessarily me, but this, like the setup. Just the glamour of it. Look, you know, we've made the sofa a little bit bigger, but we are back for episode 5. They've brought us back, and we're going to look at everything. We're going to look at everything, but before we look forward, we're going to look back. We're going to peel back to last week, because there was there was 3 massive games, weren't there? Semi-finals, Saracens versus Gloucester. Predicted a comfortable victory for Saracens. I didn't think it would be as comfortable as it actually was. 49 points to 19, which probably doesn't reflect the game. Gloucester scored a couple of tries, or a try towards the end of the game. 50 points effectively. Saracens absolutely demolished them. Gloucester scored a try early on, Ben Morgan in the corner. We can speed through them because it is a little bit old news. It was more the performance of Gloucester I was frustrated about. Obviously played at Gloucester, was captain for a season, was very happy to see them in the top 4 the first time in 8 years, but just didn't rock up. Saracens didn't allow them. They kept kicking the ball high up in the sky, and Gloucester could not deal with it. So disappointed that Gloucester didn't put in a better performance, but very impressed with their season. Spoke about it before. Top 4, you know, Ackermans changed the way in which people perceive Gloucester, the culture. He's brought in some quality players. And obviously the Cipriani effect. Cipriani has had an amazing season. I'm not going to keep labouring the point. And off the back of such a good season at Gloucester, Ackerman's been rewarded with a new deal. Ka-ching-a-ling. Ka-ching-a-ling-a-ling.
What do you reckon he's on?
300.
Really?
Grand a year. Pounds. I don't know what that converts to in rands, but I'm sure it's a shitload of money. A shitload of rands. Money aside, Ackerman's been a fantastic coach for Gloucester. Speaking to the lads there, the kind of culture that he's brought in, the enjoyment factor, spoken to Ed Slater a lot about him, and he deserves a new contract. He really does. I don't know what the term of it is, 3 years I think it is. I actually thought South Africa might try and come in for him after the World Cup, depending on how they do obviously. He might have a clause that says he can become South African coach if that comes up, but he's obviously recruited very well, South African players, who I thought would be cheaper. Sale have obviously done similar. They've brought a lot of South African players because they're fucking good at rugby. And they're hard and they're durable. And that's what Ackerman's done. He's obviously brought in Creel, he's brought in his son Ackerman, Mostar in the second row, who apparently is a marquee signing, which means he's getting paid a lot of money. And he's got the best out of some of the other players in the team. Billy 12 Bags in the centre. Atkinson in the centre as well, and obviously Ed Slater mentioned that, and them combinations. But off the back of them signing these big time players and Ackerman signing a new deal, RugbyPass have shown an article online this week that they've had to get rid of 2 players, Gareth Evans and Henry Purdy, 2 guys that I know really well, 2 guys that have actually come through the system, have come through the Hartbury club as well, which is effectively the sister club for Gloucester. They've come through. Both them players, well, Gareth was playing in the back row when I was at Gloucester years and years ago, so it's a real shame. I mean, I can't imagine they'd be warranting much money, but some talk about the salary cap and trying to balance that, as we know a lot of clubs are getting looked into. So, end on a positive. Gloucester have done fantastic this year. Ackerman's re-signed, and I think Gloucester are going to be in the top 4 for the next few years, for sure. Exeter against Northampton in the other semi-final, 42 points to 12. Now, this was a game where I actually think it was closer than the scoreline says. Northampton played a great brand of rugby. There was a few mistakes in them just before half-time. Rory Hutcherson, who was outstanding again. And I'm so glad that he's going to be going to play for Scotland. I know he hasn't been capped for the first team. He'll be going to the World Cup with the form that he's in. Sensational. Was obviously up against Henry Slade. Anyway, there's a talking point before half-time where he makes a break, inside ball to Cobus Reinach, who drops the ball. Put it in slow-mo a couple of times. It weren't a great pass. But if they score that before half-time, who knows? Hindsight.
Could have been a whole different story.
Could have been a whole different story, and hindsight is a great thing. Exeter do what Exeter do. Play a boring style of rugby, according to Chris Boyd. I wouldn't say he said it was a boring style. I don't know whether that's quote, but Chris Boyd said that this week that Exeter need to play with a little bit more optimism if they're to do better in Europe. Now, again, I'm only going it based on articles that I've read, so I don't know in what context. The Northampton team and Exeter do play a different brand of rugby. Exeter's is successful, but not in Europe. Maybe that's what Boydie was saying. I like that, though. A bit of trolling after, eh? Bit of banter.
Doesn't make much sense, though, seeing as Exeter had like an unbelievable amount of try bonus points this season.
100%.
So
yeah, I know. Well, maybe it's taken out of context. You know, maybe Boydie's a little bit frustrated with the way that Exeter beat them at the weekend. Obviously, they scored a few tries in that pick and go scenario, which Exeter are now synonymous with. So, yeah, big shout out to Northampton as well. I didn't think they'd make top four. My mate Andy Good did. He predicted a top four finish for them. It was obviously very close between them and Harlequins. But we see the two best teams all season, consistently the top two teams, are now in what we thought would be the final of how it matches up. So there was another big game in Glasgow, in Celtic Park. It was Glasgow, at home, playing against Leinster. I predicted Glasgow to win that game until I woke up the morning in Edinburgh and headed over to the West Coast, and it was an absolute monsoon. And I thought, we're in the summer, it's a Scottish summer, and I was worried for Glasgow because we know that they play an amazing attacking style rugby, and it wasn't just raining, it was an absolute monsoon. And predictions was wrong. Leinster, who are current champions of the Pro 14, beat them. Didn't beat them comfortably. Glasgow nearly came back in the end, and there's a huge talking point that's come out of the game, and it involved Stuart Hogg, who played his last game for Glasgow. Obviously, he was looking for an amazing swan song. Do you call it a swan song, even if you're going to carry on playing?
Probably not. Well, maybe, yeah, for a club, yeah. Yeah,
maybe a swan song. He might be back at Glasgow, who knows? But it was his last game for Glasgow, in Glasgow. You couldn't even script it, could you, in terms of the fairy tale ending for him? Well, it didn't end as a fairy tale. It ended as a nightmare for Hoggy. Rob Kearney puts a bomb up in the sky. I mean, it's up there for a long, long time. Hoggy goes up at 15, catches the ball, and Rob Kearney absolutely fucking wipes him clean out. Clean out. No chance of getting the ball whatsoever. Hoggy lands on his back, hits his head, stays down, goes off. He's clearly concussed. Doesn't even do a HIA. So they know that he's ball bagged and that he ain't getting back up. Kearney's not a dirty player at all. I do think it was accidental. It was mistimed. It was clumsy. Nigel Owens is the ref. My favourite referee. So him, Wayne Barnes, Luke Pearce, my three favourite referees. Very good under pressure. Make difficult calls at difficult times. Was relaxed in making the decision. Went to the TMO. Had the judgment of the linesman as well. Yellow card. I'm like, no. I was like, if there's ever a red card, it is now. And I hate seeing red cards, and I hate calling for red cards. I'd rather not see red cards. But when a red card is justified, it needs to be shown. And it weren't.
If that was a pool game, do you reckon it was a red?
I reckon if it's any game, it's a red card. Pool game, pub game, game in the garden with your brother or your sister, it's a red card. You're off. You're off. And are you getting banned? I don't know, but you're off. And in the time that Kearney was off, Stewart scores a try in the corner, replacement hooker. I think Hastings misses the kick, but it's game on. So we're like, it's game on. Kearney comes on with 5 minutes to go at the end. Glasgow are attacking from anywhere, from their own half. and they obviously don't score like Leinster, turn them over and go on to win the game. But you don't. It gives us talking points to talk about. But you don't want to talk about, was it a red card, wasn't it? So it was a big thing, a big point for that. It's a shame for Glasgow. 47,000 people, which is the highest attendance in a Pro 14 final. And we'll leave on a positive note. We shall, because rugby in Scotland now is growing, and to have that many fans, and a lot of them were Glaswegian. Leinster, from what I heard, a lot of the fans spent a lot of money on going to Newcastle for the Champions Cup final, so they stayed at home. Johnny Sexton got interviewed after the game and said the atmosphere was amazing, and credit to the Glaswegians. I know there was a bit of talk of booing during the kicks. But yeah, I think rugby in Scotland is in a fantastic place, and credit to both them teams and the Pro 14 for putting on such a spectacle. So a little bit of news this weekend, not loads and loads and loads. Some of them, RugbyPass have published the articles on them, of course, because that's what they do, that's what we do. We talk all things rugby. Jordan Murphy, again, we've got to speak about Leicester. He obviously went through the disciplinary process, which we knew and spoke about last week, handed a 3-week ban for abusing Sean Davey, who was the TMO at the Bath game. So 3-week ban. He was also fined £1,500. I mean, is that a lot of money to Jordan and Leicester? But this is bad. He has to write a letter of apology to Sean Davey. Who's writing a letter? Who's writing his letter to him? Why don't you just call him and say, Sean, sorry about that, mate. We've been dreadful this season. I'm absolutely raging. I'm pissed off. I'm embarrassed by our season. I should never have abused you. Who's writing a letter of apology? Dear Sean Davey, hope you're well.
Is it handwritten?
Well, I presume.
Who knows?
It says write a letter.
Yeah, but he could, claim dyslexia and he has to use a laptop.
Exactly. Spell check.
And then, the accountant in the back office just writes it.
That's what's going to happen. Teresa, the team manager, is going to be writing that letter to Sean. Just pick up the phone. I'm sure Jordan did pick up the phone. He's a nice guy. He's a quality human being. And again, Leicester had a dreadful season, but we're not going to talk about it. What else have we got? Will Skelton. We keep talking him up. Unbelievable performance again at the weekend. This season he has been sensational. There's talk of him playing for the World Cup or playing for Australia in the World Cup. And you wonder, don't you? You wonder at Saracens, right? So you've got Itoje, obviously Cruz in the second row, Nick Ezekwe, maybe an outside bet to be in the outside squad for England. Saracens are left thin on the ground for position. So Mark McCalls comes out this week and he's like, no, if Will Skelton gets an opportunity to go to the World Cup, I want him to go. I think that's brilliant, that you've got your head coach, because by Skelts going to the World Cup, and obviously Crusoe and Itoje, see I'm name dropping them as like they're my best mates, they were. Saracens are going to be thin on the ground. So I think that one of the things that Saracens wanted with Will Skelton was because he wouldn't be playing in the Championship. But on form, he is potentially, arguably, in my opinion, the form second row in the world right now. And if Australia want to do anything, they need to pick him. They're obviously going to pick Nick White, who I spoke to on the phone yesterday, actually. And he's going to be going. I think he's in the squad to go to the World Cup. So Will Skelton, you've heard it here first. Maybe it's not breaking news, but he will be the starting second row for Australia in the World Cup.
But how's that going to happen? Does he not need to sign for an Australian team?
I don't know. This is the thing. I was looking at it today. Does he need to sign for an Australian team? Can he be on loan? I don't know. Will they change the rules? If you're Checker and you're Scott Johnson, who's now heading up the rugby programme there, you need to pick your best players. And we've seen that with South Africa. Scouts hasn't got that many caps, so I don't know whether he'd fall into the over 30 plus caps, therefore you can play. I don't know what the rulings are. So someone please tell me. What else have we got? Oh, here's a good story. So World Rugby have now allowed the use of these plastic goggles that have been made famous, I'd say, off the back of last year's Six Nations. Ian McKinley, who is the Italian fly half, who is actually Irish, and I've done a big interview. We did an Exceptional Stories documentary on him, so I know his story in depth, and got a lot of time, a lot of respect for what he's been through. So basically he was in a ruck playing for a team in Ireland. It might have been Leinster at the time. Got kicked in the eye and lost full sight, detached his retina in his eye, and therefore had to retire. So moved over to Italy, took up a job as a teacher, and started playing semi-professional rugby back out there with the use of some goggles. Obviously a quality player. You hear Conor O'Shea, Leo Cullen speak about him as he was a fantastic player, was pushing Sexton all the way, and obviously missed out a large chunk of his career through that horrific injury that he had. Would have went on to play for Ireland, I'm sure of it. But now he's obviously gone on to play for Italy, set up life there, and he's built up a bit of a profile for himself. The fact that he can kick goals and he's only got the sight of one eye, and the fact that he wears these iconic goggles during the game. So World Rugby have now said that they're going to allow them at all levels, and I think there's over 2,000 people now that have signed up to play with the goggles. So I think that's a great thing. It's a great step forward for rugby, and it's a good thing that World Rugby have done, and it's a big shout out to Ian McKinley, who's obviously been championing that and has been a role model for players that have lost sight or been badly injured. So that is a very good thing, and we like to see that. Pocock retiring from Super Rugby. Now, I'm not too sure whether that's completely from rugby. For anyone who knows David Pocock, in the back row, is an absolute monster. He is a beast of a human being. For me, he's almost changed the face of modern day rugby and the way that back rows play. The size of the man, the arms of the man. He's obviously ripped to shreds, which a lot of the players are now. But he's struggled a little bit with injury. I think, of course, he's taken absolute battering with the way that he plays, not just the way that he carries, but obviously he has got his head firmly in them breakdowns. I think he's got a calf injury at the minute, so he's not going to be playing Super Rugby ever again. That's it. They're going to wrap him in cotton wool ahead of the World Cup. And again, it's very Australia heavy. We spoke about Nick White and Will Skelton, Australia with Hooper in the back row, and also a player of Pocock's ability. It'll be sad to see him retire if that's what he actually does, because he's a world-class player. I think we might see a bit of a swan song if he gets through the World Cup. In France, maybe. MLR? Who knows? Premiership? We'd love to see him. So that's Pocock. Announced his retirement this week. Talking about rows as well, Shawnee O'Brien missed the final. I actually heard it was a hamstring strain. And then I found out that he's had some hip surgery, or was due to have hip surgery and have the whole surface of his ball and socket joint done. Jesus Christ. Man, how are you coming back from that? Why would you want to come back from that?
And he's just signed for London Irish, and he might not be fit to play again.
Mate, again, I'm no doctor, and I hope I'm proven wrong. I can't see you coming back from that. Similar, I think it's similar, if not the exact same surgery that Andy Murray, the tennis players, had. I don't think he's coming back from that. Sean O'Brien, I mean, he's in double figures now for surgery, surely. Again, you're playing in the toughest position on a rugby field, tackling the way that he did, the way that he does, over ball, carrying. He is an absolute monster. He's a freak of nature, and his body's now said, look, I'm fucked. And you're going under the knife again. London Irish, do you expect Sean O'Brien to play for them? I hope he does, but either way, you're not going to get the best Sean O'Brien, that's for sure. So we wish Sean O'Brien all the best, and hopefully we will see him grace a rugby field again, but it just shows you how tough the back row positions are. We saw Dan Levy, horrific injury for Leinster. Oh, God, rugby's a tough old sport, eh? So that's it for the news and the articles. We haven't got loads. As I say, we're at the business end of the season. Most of the lads are on holiday now, posting pictures and videos of them, in Dubai and all these nice exotic places. Social media posts. Do we have a post of the week? Yeah, we do. Let's talk about something that came to my desk. I don't even have a desk, but if I did, it would come to my desk. Rugby's biggest thugs. Apparently, me. So I don't know what site it was. I know it was on YouTube, and there's basically a compilation of my biggest thuggish moments. There ain't no tries. There's no offloads. It's my legacy was me basically grabbing other fellow rugby players and looking extremely scary, and the odd time throwing the odd bomb. Well, this was it. Rugby's biggest compilations, thugs. I'm there. I've got I've got to defend myself. I don't see myself as a thug or an enforcer. I had to throw my weight around somehow, and I was just sticking up for myself. So my legacy is basically a fight for Gloucester against London Irish, first day as captain against David Pace, where I nearly murdered him on the pitch. That's basically my legacy. So if my kids go onto YouTube or Google and type in their dad's name, Jim Hamilton, legendary rugby player, the first things that come up in this order is the David Pace fight, is a clear out against South Africa where I cleared out Francois Lowe and he hurt his neck, and then followed by that is an Etzebeth incident where basically I filled in Etzebeth and basically lost Scotland the game down in Nelsprut in an international down there in 2015 maybe, 2014. Anyway, that's my legacy, unfortunately for me. What else have we got? Fiji 7 celebrations. Like that, they won. I think, was it the London Sevens they won? I think. First thing they do, obviously they're not a team of big drinkers because the Fijians aren't. I tell you what, we'll go out and we'll order, or we'll get room service or hotel service to go out and order basically the whole of the KFC. So they're seen, they've got the hotel janitor, passes it on to the team manager. They are literally probably wheeling 500 kilograms worth of Kentucky Fried Chicken through the door. Now, I like Kentucky Fried Chicken. I would say I love it. I'm not a fast food restaurants kind of man, but it would probably be a go-to fast food restaurant. That would be me, KFC. It's going to be cold. By the time that rocks in to where it needs to be, from where it's been bought from, it's going to be cold. Who has cold KFC? What else have we got? We have got... I saw an interesting thing. Football versus rugby in Bordeaux. There was a match last week, the match de légende. Bloody hell, I'm so good at my French. Sébastien Chabal up against Zinedine Zidane, and it was to raise money for sick kids in France. And it was interesting. I watched it back on YouTube, and it was tackling. There was actually tackling in the game. I didn't see Sébastien Chabal monster anyone, but it was good to see them out there. Zidane running around with a rugby ball in his hands, and I don't know. Yeah, was it 22-12? I don't know whether it was 22 and that included tries and because obviously 5 points for a try, 1 point for a goal. Anyway, maths was never my strong point, but yeah, that looked good. What else have we got? I took a screen grab of a bit of interaction between the Times newspaper, and I do a column for the Times, and Stuart Hogg. Basically, the headline read after the game, Stuart Hogg wanted to go out on a high, so you could say his wish was granted. I mean, it was the Scottish part of the paper as well. I mean, a bit of bant, but come on. You know, Hoggy's last game for Glasgow. Glasgow lose the game. He goes off concussed. Stuart Hogg replies, shit crack, straight after.
Do you reckon that reporter's bitter that a proud Scot is moving to England?
Maybe. Or maybe Hoggy's replying as in like shit crack as in it was a shit crack on the, you know, what happened as opposed to the headline being shit crack. But either way, it was a crack. It was a crack at Hoggy, or it was a crack just to have a crack. But yeah, so I thought that was quite interesting. Obviously, Hoggy's clearly pissed off with the situation. And to be fair, we were pitch side for the game. Rob Kearney goes up to Hoggy and shakes his hand. And to be fair, Hoggy shakes his hand back. So no hard feelings there. I think he's more pissed off with the Times newspaper for sensationalising the headline. But my social media post of the week is an absolute bantathon between the Twitter pages of Wales, Ireland and Scotland, and it's all to do with some innuendos around the Spice Girls, and it's something to do, you were telling me, to do with the roof being opened or closed for a concert the Spice Girls are playing in Wales. Am I right in saying that?
The Spice Girls came out and publicly said that their arena tour was designed to be an open roof tour, and therefore the roof will stay open at the Millennium. Millennium. What's it called now?
Yeah, Principality
Stadium. And then the Irish tweeted, kind of saying, yeah, but they're not up against Alan Wynne.
Oh, there we go, banter, eh? So basically, the Spice Girls want the Principality, the Millennium Stadium roof left open for their concert, and what the Spice Girls want, the Spice Girls get. Can I admit that I'm actually going to see the Spice Girls or not?
Wow.
Yeah, wife's taking me.
Was that her birthday treat to you?
I think so. Either way, it was not where I wanted to be, but I've agreed to go.
As in, you wanted front row seats rather than the back row seats?
Imagine me at Spice Girls concert. But anyway, an absolute banter-thon between them. I thought it was really funny, to be fair. Obviously, two become one. That's all I know. See, I don't even know my Spice Girls chat. I tell you what, though, where was England in all this? Like, surely the Spice Girls are going to go and play in England. England Twitter account, 0 ban. Absolute 0 ban. Where are you? The Celtic nations are strong and they love a bit of bant. So that is my social media post of the week, because there's not a lot out there, and I'm going to see the Spice Girls, and I thought it was quite funny. So finally, we're going to look at the last game of the season. Sad. I'm not that sad. Looking forward to 4 weeks off, 6 weeks off before the World Cup. Saracens versus Exeter. We knew it. Of course we did. Best two teams in the Gallagher Premiership all season. Top two all year. And the majority of us predicted that this would be the final, a repeat of last season's final yet again. What have we got to talk about? Wayne Barnes. Let's talk a little bit about him, because it's his 9th final, maybe his last. There's talks of him retiring after the World Cup. He's been awesome. There's no better man to take the reins. I don't know who the touch judges are. I'm hoping Luke Pearce. I like Luke Pearce. And it's not about the referees, though. It is obviously about the players on the pitch. Spoke to Nick White yesterday on the rugby podcast that I do with Andy Good. How do you beat Saracens? That's the $1 million question that I asked him. And I think what he said, and looking back on last year, is they're looking for, and it's easy to say, it's generic to say, that they didn't perform last year, and they want to go out there and give the best possible account of themselves and of Exeter. Can Exeter beat Saracens? I don't think they can. I really don't. I hate to say that, because Exeter are everyone's second team. The story of where they've come from, the way the club carries itself, being down in the southwest, Devon, sell-out crowds at Sandy Park every week. You know, they haven't got many rock star players. They're a team of grafters. They're old school, like a farmer-style community. The neutral wants to see Exeter win. But if you're speaking frankly about it, Saracens, this steam train of destruction they are on, seems unstoppable. The last few weeks, in terms of their performances, whether it be the first team in the Champions Cup final, whether it be the Sevens team earlier in the season winning the Sevens tournament, whether it be the women in the Tyrrell 15, whether it be the second or third team that goes to Worcester and loses just to a last-minute kick, or beats Exeter at Allianz Park, the momentum of the club, the star quality players they've got. For me, the difference is between the two clubs is Saracens just have a little bit more star quality. They've got a little bit more world-class carrying ability. If Exeter are going to do anything, their back row have got to be phenomenal. Kovacic, who was up for Player of the Season, not really spoke about him. He's been sensational this year. Don Almond, we know. Dave Ewers. They've got to be at their very best. Vunapola's got to be stopped on gain line. Mauro Itoje to playing at 6. Phenomenal carrying. Can they stop him? If they do, can they stop Will Skelton? If they do, can they stop Nick Tompkins if he plays ahead of Brad Barrett? And I suppose that's the only talking point from the game. Is Brad Barrett going to play? He's got a hamstring injury. The talk is that it's a grade 2. And the warrior of human being that Brad Barrett is, he'd play with it off the bone. We've seen him play with the plate in his cheekbone after having surgery a week before, but I think your cheek and your hamstring are very different, without stating the obvious.
And Saracens are going to give him until the warm-up to prove his fitness as well.
Of course they are. They'll give him every millisecond before the game they can.
But if you're Nick Tompkins, who scored a hat-trick last week, and they're going to every length to let someone with a grade 2 hamstring tear play, is that an insult, or is that a...
I think any other player at Saracens, I don't know, there's a few, isn't there? Itoje, Farrell, Brad Barrett, Vunapolas. You have to give them the chance. Nick Tompkins, for me, he's been sensational ever since I've seen him play. He's a fantastic player. Obviously comes on at the weekend, scores a hat-trick in 60 minutes, comes on for Brad Barrett. Every time he's played, he's looked ridiculous. But if anything that Saracens lack, it's sometimes composure. They've got such star players, and we know that Farrell's a little bit of a hothead. If Brad doesn't play, Owen will be captain. Brad's like the glue that kind of can manage Owen's fire, Owen's natural aggression and desire to win with having a rapport with the referee. He brings a real balance to the team. He is irreplaceable. And as good as Nick Tompkins is, and I'm a huge fan of him, Brad needs to play. But does he need to play if he's got a grade 2 hamstring? I don't know. He's an absolute warrior of a human being, and you don't want to see him rupture it, do you, and be out for 6 months or whatever that kind of injury would be. But Nick Tompkins, wow, what a player. And I'm sure that him and Lazowski have been training in the centres this week. Obviously Lazowski at 12, Tompkins at 13. So they're going to be prepped for it. So preparation-wise, they'll be probably in a better place if Brad doesn't play. But for me, I can see Sarries winning this game comfortably. I really can. I think the weather's going to be decent, 26 degrees. The weatherman told me. I got a mate who's a weatherman. Random. Exeter being sensational. And for me personally, I think if you win the Gallagher Premiership, you win the league, you win. That's what I think. I think it's ridiculous that you add in 2 more games, 2 more one-off games. But anyway, they don't. It's a playoff system, makes it slightly more exciting, some might argue. Saracens will win this game, and they will yet again win back-to-back doubles. So that's it. Episode 5. We're going to do one more Don't Mess With Jim next week, and we will round up the season gone by. But that's it for now. So enjoy the weekend, enjoy the final, and enjoy a beer in the sun.